again, Westminster. This is Terry from Cafe 10 West, and today I'd like to talk to you about biscotti. Biscotti is a very basic Italian cookie. A lot of variations to it. There is no true biscotti recipe. I did some research, and people like my Italian grandmother like to mess with the recipe because it is so flexible. Flavors that are popular in biscotti are almond, pine nuts, citrus flavors like lemon or orange, vanilla is always popular, anise, my favorite, with anise extract and anise seeds. But today I'm sharing a recipe from Westminster member Sue Kelly with her permission, and she makes a biscotti that's rolled like a jelly roll and has a filling, and the filling that we're going to use today is cinnamon sugar. So let's get started. We're going to start with half a stick of butter, that's a 1/4 cup. And to that I'm going to add half a cup of sugar. Mix. The butter was at room temperature, and today's a really hot day, so it was nice and soft. And now I'll break my eggs. I'll put 2 eggs in here, and I'll do it the proper way, one at a time. Okay, let me just get the egg off my fingers. And I should have put in half a teaspoon or 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt at this point, but I've already mixed the salt in with my flour and baking powder. So we're going to get going here and give this a good mix. Now, if you wanted to just do a plain biscotti that doesn't have the jelly roll effect, you could add your flavoring at this point. Your vanilla, your lemon extract, lemon zest is good. I'm going to switch to some dough hooks. This isn't necessary, you could just use a spoon, but these are cute. And now I've already whisked together my dry ingredients. And now we'll just incorporate those into the wet ingredients. That's good enough. I'm going to finish up with a rubber spatula. So here is where the magic of Sue's recipe comes in. Rather than just making a log shape on the cookie sheet and baking the biscotti, I'm going to shape this into a jelly roll. So I'm going to take some parchment. Okay, so I have my parchment, and I am going to generously flour the parchment. Like I said, this is a very sticky dough. Fold in the last of that flour that was on the side of the bowl. And then try and roughly make a log shape with the batter. And I'm glad we're doing this as a video because Sue had to meet with me in person to teach me how to do this. Now I'm going to use floured hands to try and pat this out into a rectangle. You'll see why all this flour is necessary when we go to roll it on the parchment. Okay, so I've tried to make a rectangle that's roughly 8 by 10 or 8 by 12 inches. You don't want to make it too large or too thin. Okay, then we take our cinnamon sugar mixture. I've used 2 tablespoons of sugar, white sugar, and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. I'll just dump that on here. And then I'm going to use my fingers to spread it around. And I'm leaving about an inch on the long edges without cinnamon sugar. Okay, now we're going to do a jelly roll type fold. So I'm using the parchment to lift that up and fold it over. A little bench scraper to help me with this if I need it. And then I want to repeat that fold at least 2 more times. It's messy, but if you're patient, you can get this done. Okay, so now we've got a roll. And I want to carefully reposition it back on the middle of the parchment. So let's see if I can get under there and scoot it over a little bit. If there are any holes where you can see the filling sticking out, try and pinch those closed. But you don't have to be too fussy about appearance because, like I said, this is going to change considerably in size. It's going to expand sideways, lengthwise, and in height. But that's about what you want it to look like. I've already preheated the oven to 350 degrees. So now I'm going to transfer this to a cookie sheet and get it in there to bake. Okay, so that's going to bake at 350 degrees for 30 minutes. Meanwhile, I'll show you the second step. After the biscotti has baked for 30 minutes, this is what it should look like. It has greatly increased in size. Now, this one is not the jelly roll. This is anise. I have anise extract and anise seeds just mixed in there. And I'm going to get a big cutting board and start to slice this. Some people say that biscotti means twice baked. So it has a second baking period. What I want to do is slice this into slices 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. And my knife is 5/8 of an inch, so it's perfect. I use my knife to gauge the slices. And use a sawing motion to cut through. You can do it on a diagonal. I don't do that because I tend to lose track and my diagonal changes. So I just cut them straight across. And I should get about 16 slices out of this. Don't rush it. Let the knife do the work because you don't want to crumble the edges of your beautiful biscotti.
You need the biscotti to sit for a while before you cut it?
Oh, good question, Lynn. It baked for 30 minutes, and normally they should sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. I baked this about an hour ago, so it's been thoroughly cooled. It's best if the biscotti loaf is a little bit warm when you cut it. You don't want it to be hot from the oven, but sometimes it's easier if it's still warm. But this is thoroughly cool and it's working. So I'm trying to make nice uniform slices. and I'm trying to cut straight up and down. So the second bake is to toast the biscotti. If you've ever had this before, it's not soft and light colored. It usually is very hard and toasted. So that's what the second baking does. Okay, so I've got my slices, and now I'm going to put this whole thing back on the cookie sheet. And you can leave them upright like this. If you've cut them nice and straight up and down, they will stand up on the cookie sheet. But just offset them a little bit so that each biscotti can get the heat of the oven to dry it and toast it. The other way to do this, especially if your angle isn't quite right and they won't stand up, is to just lay them on the cookie sheet. But halfway through the second bake, you'll have to turn them over so both sides toast. So this is a way to do both sides at once. Okay, so I've got room in my oven. I'm going to put this pan of biscotti in. And the second bake is going to be 15 minutes. So the biscotti that Lynn showed you earlier has this little bit of a swirl design in it. You don't see the filling on the outside, which is the nice thing about Sue's recipe. The filling is all inside. Here's one that looks a little bit better. You can see that swirl. For these, I added a little vanilla extract to the dough, and my filling is ground hazelnuts and chocolate. A good combination. But like I said, you can use a variety of fillings and make it your own.